Well, hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchifeld, the podcast. So great to be along with you today. President Trump taking the hammer to America's largest banks. He is set to issue an executive order that will, in my opinion, do away with the weaponization of banking against conservatives. We saw what happened when Biden was in charge and his regulators maybe putting the screws to some of these banks. But I think you had a willing, woke board members of Bank of America, JP Morgan, and so many others that debanked so many conservatives for their role in January 6th, their role in defending President Trump over all of his cases, their role in being a conservative commentator. I've heard stories from everyday folks who literally lost credit cards because of their political views. Well, this executive order will initially enter strong and steep fines against any bank that is found to target anybody for political reasons. Not just conservatives. You can't target liberals if they have liberal viewpoints. We live in a nation where free speech is everything, and President Trump, thankfully, is fighting back against the banks. Why? Because he was a victim too. So with that, we're going to talk about that today on the program. It's a very, very important topic. We're also going to talk about the Golden Dome. Some serious challenges in the Golden Dome. You know, this is this space-based missile defense system that'll shoot incoming missiles out of the sky. Are we close to making this happen? Not so much. Can we make it happen? Yes. You're going to get the straight scoop on the Golden Dome, which a lot of people aren't talking about right now. But before we get to all that, I want to tell you about my friends over at Patriot Mobile. You know, I love my Patriot Mobile phone. I tell you about it all the time. Patriot Mobile, the official provider, cell phone service to Stinchifield's Army. Why? Because they're America's cell phone company. They believe in the things we do. They literally are putting their money where their mouth is, spending money. A portion of every dime they get from you goes to pushing conservative causes, whether it's helping veterans, to gun owners and freedom of speech, right to life. Patriot Mobile is on the front lines, and so are their executives. This is why I'm so proud to partner with them. Beyond that, though, you choose what network you want to be in, so you're not going to lose service, whether it's the Verizon or AT&T network. You're going to be on that. So you get 100% U.S.-based customer service. That's phenomenal. The other cell phone companies won't do that. They'll make you a deal to switch. They've got a performance guarantee that if you're not happy with the one network you're on, you can switch. Or you can get two networks on one phone with two lines. Only Patriot Mobile can do that too. PatriotMobile.com/grant. If you haven't made the switch, I'm just going to ask you why. Why are you funding the agenda of the woke left by spending money with these big woke companies when you can have better service, a better feeling, and a better experience with Patriot Mobile? 972-PATRIOT is the number, 972-PATRIOT. Use the promo code GRANT for a free month's service. PatriotMobile.com/grant. All right, with that, let's get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchifeld. Here's your host, Grant Stinchifeld.
All right, so it is about time that we start pushing back against woke companies that waged war on Americans, that waged war on conservatives simply for their political beliefs. I talked to President Trump's former attorney, John Eastman, last night. They debanked him from two separate banks because of his role in defending President Trump after January 6th. I talked to a January 6ther himself, Jonathan Strand, who said literally he had bank accounts canceled, credit card situations canceled, him like so many others, debanked. Gun store owners, what did they do to all of you? The credit card companies were trying to make it so you couldn't charge gun purchases onto credit cards to debank anybody that believed in the Second Amendment. This is not what America is about. So President Trump pushing back on the debanking issue. This, folks, in my opinion, is huge. President Trump talked about it.
You know, banks are not afraid of anything but a regulator. They're regulators and their wives. They're more afraid of their wives than the regulators. But the group they're really afraid of is bank regulators. And I believe that Biden or Kamala, and I don't think they're smart enough to do it, but the people that are surrounding the beautiful Resolute desk, you know, the high IQ people that are radical left, I believe they told the banking commission, the bankers, that the banking regulators, do everything you can to destroy Trump.
Everything you can do to destroy Trump. I guarantee that's what they said. But listen, the banks could have pushed back against the regulators. Now, I understand the regulators have great control over any industry they regulate. But at some point, you can say, no, you know what? We don't think this is right. We're not canceling the bank accounts of our customers over political beliefs. That isn't what America is about. But no, I believe these banks were willing participants. They were more than happy to do it. And in fact, having the regulators on their side gave them an excuse to do it. So the president of Bank of America actually talked about this. He's the CEO, Brian Moynihan, talked about this. And he gives a little tip-off that President Trump was right, but he kind of couches the way he says it. But it becomes clear to me that the Biden administration, bank regulators were putting the screws to the banks, but the banks were fully willing to comply because all they wanted to do was cancel Trump supporters, cancel America First, cancel the MAGA movement. That's what the banks wanted. And the regulators gave them the big thumbs up. Go ahead and do it.
But look, the president's after the right thing, which is the laws, rules, and regulations around our industry became used to cause things to happen. It's whether it's BSAML, whether it's KYC, whether it's reputational risk, and you heard Tim Scott quote about it. It is right to go look at these rules because at the end of the day, they are causing decisions to be made that can be looked at in retrospect and made differently. We should get these rules right.
You think? Get these rules right is literally an understatement. We need the rules right where we're protecting everyone in America, not just conservatives, but you're protecting the free speech of everyone, even a radical who speaks no sense, providing they're not threatening to kill people. Speech needs to be protected. I don't want banks conservating liberals. I don't want banks targeting liberals, just as I don't want banks targeting conservatives. I don't want industry targeting anybody. Let's just let the free markets work and go about our business. President Trump continued on CNBC.
I call up Bank of America routinely because when I was president, this was after I got out, by the way, I call up Bank of America routinely, and I speak to him, and I speak to a couple of people, and they have zero interest. Brian was kissing my ass when I was president, and when I called him after I was president to deposit $1 billion plus and a lot of other things, I had hundreds of accounts, and he said, we can't do it, no.
We can't do it. Why not? They really afraid of the bank regulators? Now, you heard the difference between the CEO now. Just listen to his first words.
But look, the president's after the right thing, which is the laws, rules, and regulations around our industry became...
Oh, shut up. The president's after the right thing? Oh, really? Well, he wasn't after the right thing, I guess, when he wasn't president, when you thought he was never coming back. See, they bet wrong. Everybody on the left did. The media thought President Trump wasn't going to come roaring back. The banks didn't think President Trump would come roaring back. And guess what? President Trump came roaring back. And now he's coming roaring back with a vengeance, with a giant hammer, defending free speech and going after every industry, including the banks now. You cannot weaponize a bank against conservatives because you don't like their idea of freedom and free markets. But that's what they did. And they ought to be ashamed of themselves, quite frankly. To me, it makes me sick that we would have companies like Bank of America and JP Morgan Chase that were canceling people because of their support for President Trump and canceling President Trump himself. My Lord, when you think about that.
I had hundreds of millions. I had many, many accounts loaded up with cash. I was loaded up with cash. And they told me, I'm sorry, sir, we can't have you. You have 20 days to get out. I said, you got to be kidding. I've been with you for 35, 40 years.
20 days to get out. Do you know what it's like for a billionaire and his companies to unwind their banking system. I mean, I've got my business. I've got my personal accounts, just my little stuff alone. 20 days to try to transfer it to find another bank that's going to work with you. You've got line of credits when it comes to your business. That now you've got to rework. My Lord. But they knew it. It was all part of the conspiracy to destroy President Trump. All part of the conspiracy to not let him back in office. And don't think you weren't part of the victimization of all of this. You were, because they thought if they went after all of you, that you wouldn't vote for him again because, I don't want the headache of being debanked. Boy, did they underestimate us. You come after us, we came back stronger than ever before. That's what Stinchfield's army is about. That's what the MAGA movement is about. You don't keep us down. We're going to come back swinging harder than ever before. They literally thought that if they debanked you, President Trump got me debanked, I'm not voting for him again. No, it was the exact opposite. We get debanked, or we get deplatformed, or we get demonetized. What do? Make sure we get President Trump back in office. And that's exactly what we did. Thank God for that, too. Here's Tim Scott.
What we do is we eliminate reputational risk is what they're using. The OCC, FDIC.
Right. I had that in my riff. Yes, that's one of their weapons.
So important. It is such a big weapon they use on steroids against conservatives.
You hear what he's saying? It's called reputational risk. That was a loophole for the banks to say, oh, gosh, well, the reputation's so bad. We have too much risk for our business dealing with a client like that because it could come back and hurt us. Give me a freaking break. Reputational risk.
What I want to do is eliminate that. Good news is I've had a lot of cooperation from the banking regulators, the OCC and the FDIC under President Trump's leadership. I've been able to move them in the right direction.
You know what's interesting? What happened to Tim Scott? I mean, I think he's great, but he was right there next to President Trump leading up to him taking office during the campaign and then kind of in the transition before President Trump was sworn in for the second term. And then he kind of disappeared. I thought Tim Scott was going to have a real big role in the Trump White House. Not so much, though he's really very beneficial inside the United States Senate as a senator there for South Carolina.
This is like the modern day redlining. You remember the redlining, black and white back in the day? Mm-hmm. Now, redlining is red and blue. Think about the first iteration that we saw. It was the gun manufacturers that said, we won't bank you anymore. Oil and gas, we won't bank you. And then they moved to the Trumps. Melania Trump herself debanked. Then they went to cryptocurrency, digital assets. What do all these things have in common? A center-right philosophy, or they found themselves in disfavor with the left.
So they target you and go after you until you say uncle, but we didn't. And that's what this executive order is about. Now, here is the main goal. President Trump is doing his job by dropping the hammer on the weaponization of banks against conservatives by saying, hey, if you do it, you are going to get a huge fine. Now, the United States Congress has to step in and back President Trump up because we need legislation putting President Trump's executive order into law so this never happens again. Because we know executive orders just go away the next time another president that disagrees with him comes into office. So let's get Congress into high gear and act on this. Nothing is more important. You know, when you have a bank that allows you to do business, it allows you to save your money, it allows you to have a credit card, it allows you to purchase things. This is the driver of the economy. We've got to protect all Americans from the weaponization of the banking system against them. Congress needs to act now, follow President Trump's lead. All right. With that, I want to tell you about my friends over at Energized Health. Then we're going to talk about the Golden Dome. You know, this Golden Dome, the missile defense system, I'm going to tell you something. I got some concerns over this. I want it in place quickly, like President Trump does. But I'm not sure we're going to be able to get it there. And I'm going to tell you why here in just a minute. Before I do, folks, energizedhealth.com. This is where you need to go, and you need to do it now. All right, if you want to take your life back, get back in shape, you want to lose weight, lose body fat, get some muscle mass going back in the right direction without having crazy workouts, without having crazy diets. You get your cells hydrated from an intracellular level, okay? Intracellular hydration. Your life will be transformed. The question is, how do you get your cells hydrated? It's not just about pounding water. Well, the folks at Energized Health have perfected this science, and it is proven that it works. How do I know? I lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks on the Energized Health system. My skin cleared up. My muscle mass started to grow. I lost the visceral fat around my organs. How do I know all this happened? Because I had a measurement of it. Right now, for $99, Energized Health is offering a device that will measure your biometrics to help you go on this process. It's a VIP program for $99. Couple that with the My 555 challenge, 5 pounds, 5 days, $5 guaranteed. You're going to be on a road to success. EnergizedHealth.com is for people that want to take their life back and get back in shape. And it doesn't matter what age you are. There are people in their 80s on this. EnergizedHealth.com. That's EnergizedHealth.com. Pay them a visit today. All right, the Golden Dome, right? What about the Golden Dome? We going to be able to get this done? This was President Trump.
In the campaign, I promised the American people that I would build a cutting-edge missile defense shield to protect our homeland from the threat of foreign missile attack. And that's what we're doing. Today, I'm pleased to announce that we have officially selected an architecture for this state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and space, including space-based sensors and interceptors. And Canada has called us, and they want to be a part of it.
Well, Canada wants to be a part of it. I would think anybody, Mexico ought to be thinking about being a part of this. If you're in North America, you want to be a part of this. But America's got to drive the lead on this. I'm worried about intellectual property being stolen, because to get this done, think about this. The Golden Dome system is space-based. It's not missiles on the ground like we have our Patriot missile system, helping our friends in Israel, shooting missiles from the ground to take down incoming missiles. This is a system in space. You've got guns in space that take out these missiles. You've got to detect the missiles coming in. You've got to have the guns and the equipment in space, and you've got to connect those two in order to do all this. It's a huge technological feat in order to make this happen. Well, I talked to Jim Cantrell about this. Jim Cantrell is the founder of Phantom Space. He was also one of the founding partners in SpaceX with Elon Musk. He was a big-time executive at SpaceX as well. Elon Musk, in many respects, Jim Cantrell looks at as a mentor. And so he walked me through the process of the Golden Dome on the Real America's Voice show last night. Take a listen to this.
Hi, Grant.
All right, you had told me there's some challenges to this. What's your biggest concern about Golden Dome?
Yeah, it's the scale of it. So this is not a new idea. We used to call this brilliant pebbles back in the Clinton era, and I guess we were worried about intelligence, and now we call it Golden Dome when we're worried about economics. But the problem's still the same, which is energetics and scale. So, missile defense today is a bunch of rockets in the ground at Fort Greely, Alaska, other places that are meant to shoot at warheads that are shot at us by our enemies and intercepting them in space. So these warheads go through space. So that the ability to shoot down a lot of warheads is pretty limited by how many of these interceptors we have. So the idea of Golden Dome is to put these all into space and that we shoot them down as they come through space. So we're just kind of sitting there watching them. So the real problem, Grant, is how do you get all that information on where these warheads are, which ones are real, because our enemies will put things in there that look like warheads that aren't, so they're hoping we're going to shoot at the wrong stuff. And how do you get that targeting information to the interceptors in space? And then the other side of it is, how do you get that many interceptors up? A lot of estimates I'm seeing are talking about 1,800 to 2,000 of these interceptors in space.
And these interceptors, I mean, I don't know if I'm totally oversimplifying this, but are they in orbit above Earth and they're acting as if they're guns in space that would then be shooting these incoming missiles out of the sky?
Yeah. So, yes, essentially that's it. In the old days, back in the early 70s, we used to do it with nuclear weapons to take these things out. But there's all sorts of bad things that happens when you set off nuclear weapons to take out an incoming missile field. The cure is worse than the disease. And so what the new modern ones do is it's hit to kill. So it's basically a bullet. So these interceptors would then propel themselves towards the nuclear warhead and simply ram into them like, some crazy person might do to you on a freeway.
So it sounds to me like we've got a technological issue where we've got to figure out where they're coming from, where they are, if they're real, if they're not real. I'm sure AI will play a role in all that. And then you've got the physical issue of getting this system into space to actually work and shoot them out of the ground. And then you got to connect those two. Are we close to making that happen?
I don't think so. We've been talking about this for at least 30 years that I've been in this business. And I worked on Brilliant Pebbles way back in the day in the 90s. And so we still haven't made the kinds of strides we need to in terms of space launch, to getting things into space. We certainly have been able to figure out how to hit the warheads. Raytheon in particular builds the interceptors and has done a great job at it. But to scale that up, right, that's been a real problem to build thousands of these. We haven't figured that out. And part of the problem is sort of the military-industrial complex culture. And it's abundantly slow, and maybe, that kind of caution's warranted because it's a very classified environment you have to work in. And so, I don't see a lot of promise for getting going on this. I don't mean to pour cold water on the idea. I'm a big fan, but I just think, the expectation we'll get this deployed in 3 years is just crazy.
Look, I would imagine in everything you've been involved with, from SpaceX to Phantom Space now and all, you're not I'm going to tell you why you can't do it guy. I'm sure you've told employees, don't tell me that, tell me how we can do it. I guess the last question for you, if you can, fairly quickly, is it possible? Can we get it done? Maybe just not as quick as we want.
100%. Yeah. No, the technology's there. The scaling of it is the issue. It's a little bit like, some of the first cars that were made. Nobody would have imagined, 100 years later, we'd be building them by the millions. I mean, that's the kind of mentality that has to happen here. And it's a sea change of culture and capability. It's just going to take time and money.
Yeah. Well, it is an important project, especially as the world gets more and more dangerous. Jim Cantrell, your insight into everything space and beyond is really fascinating to me. I love having you on. Thank you, sir, as always.
My pleasure, as always. Yeah.
So Jim Cantrell is a real resource for us when anything space related. This is one of the defense contractors on Fox News talking about Golden Dome.
The Golden Dome is going to need small, medium, and large solid rocket motors, and we have the capacity today to develop, test, and field those motors. We've built 1.3 million to date. We're the largest producer in the world, and what you saw today was an example of what we can do that happens to be for human exploration, but we can bring that for national security and for the Golden Dome.
All right, so that's from Northrop Grumman. Now, remember, though, you've got to take what many of these guys say with a grain of salt because they want the money, and this is government money. So I would imagine it's going to be billions of dollars that are going to need to be invested in order to come up with this Golden Dome. But it is, what a great national defense system if we could get this into place. Going all the way back to Reagan, this was Reagan's idea to make something like this happen. The Star Wars program, remember? We don't have it yet. President Trump knows it's important, even if he still jokes around about it. Remember that shot I showed you earlier in the week about President Trump on the roof? Well, he said this, too.
What are you trying to build?
What?
Sir, do you approve? Say more missiles? Are you building missiles? What? Come on, Dad.
I mean, these dumbass reporters, they believe him. I mean, you got to love President Trump. Nuclear missiles. This, what this reminds me of? If you've ever watched The Natural, okay? There's a shot when Robert Redford hits a rocket out of the ballpark, one of his home runs. He's coming back, and they cut away to a guy in the stands, and it's like, what, 1940s or whatever? And the guy goes, it goes like this in the stands. I don't know. Oh, here's the left is going to take this from me, and this will be my Heil Hitler sign that I'm doing, and pose to a rocket takeoff, or imitating the Natural movie, or imitating President Trump talking about rocket ships on there. That's what they're going to do. Now I'm doing the Hitler sign on my podcast. I got to be careful about what I do, because the left will take anything out of context. Not just me, but anybody that they don't like, sadly. All right, folks, let me tell you, my friends over at the Wellness Company, have you heard of methylene blue? So methylene blue is a pill that I've been starting to take every day, and this is an energy builder. This is a mind focuser. It's basically like a miracle drug. This is what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was allegedly taking as well. Well, the Wellness Company now has a supply of methylene blue. You can get it, and I'm telling you, Hollywood stars, it's changing their lives. I am just thrilled about my feeling energy levels through the roof with this methylene blue. You want to try it out? Go to twc.health/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT. That's twc.health/Grant. 10% off. Go there. When you get to my page, you'll see there's Wellness Farms for the all-natural, grass-fed, grass-finished beef products. No vaccinations, no hormones, the best beef you're ever going to have. Then, of course, there's the prescription medication kits. I tell you about these all the time. So important to have these in your arsenal of keeping your family safe. Ivermectin in here as well. There's the parasite cleanse, and now methylene blue. I mean, I could do a podcast all day long on the products they have at twc.health/Grant. I urge you to check out the website, because you're going to transform your life by what they offer up. And in the end, you're going to keep yourself safe, too, by having one of those prescription medication kits on hand. So, again, twc.health/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. All right. What's up next on the hit parade? Oh, let me ask you a question. Who do you think should be the next president of the United States? J.D. Vance? Marco Rubio? We got a whole slew of great folks. You've got some senators who I really, really like. Josh Hawley being one of them. These guys think about being president. You got Governor Abbott down in Texas. He's thinking about being president. He would not, by any means, be my first choice. But my point to this is you got a deep bench with a lot of people with a lot of experience. I don't think Ron DeSantis is going to be able to do it again. I think he ruined himself with this last run. I just don't think he's got the charisma or personality for it. But my front runner is, of course, J.D. Vance. What about President Trump?
Do you agree that the heir apparent to MAGA is J.D. Vance?
Well, I think most likely, in all fairness, he's the vice president. I think Marco is also somebody that maybe would get together with J.D. in some form. I also think we have incredible people, some of the people on the stage right here. So it's too early, obviously, to talk about it, but certainly he's doing a great job, and he would be probably favored at this point.
I guarantee you he would be favored. He's doing such a great job. And, J.D. Vance has just the right mix. When you're the number 2 to President Trump, you've got to let the star shine. You're there as basically just to polish the star, okay? Let President Trump shine. Let him be the front man. And J.D. Vance is doing that. But when J.D. Vance is asked to go into the spotlight, he nails it every time. And he's Trump-esque in the fact that he's an open book. You're not seeing him beating around the bush. He knows the information inside out, unlike Joe Biden, who didn't know the information. I don't even think Joe Biden was involved in some of the meetings that Obama and the likes of the Obama clan that was running the White House were holding. When you know your material, right? you're much better off. Just Caroline Levitt. She knows her material versus Karine Jean-Pierre, who I don't think was in the room when a lot of these discussions were happening. She didn't know the material. She flounders in front of the mainstream media. JD knows the material. And then you got a guy like Marco Rubio right next to you. Both of these guys are young guys. I mean, you could easily see J.D. Vance taking the realm for 8 years and Marco Rubio following it up after that. Wouldn't that be nice to have literally 20 years? That's what this would amount to, okay? 8 years of J.D. Vance, 8 years of Marco Rubio, 4 years of President Trump. That's 20 years of Republican politics. Our country would be so back on track. I mean, it would be fabulous. And hopefully we'd be changing the hearts and minds of Democrats. We'd never have another Democrat again. YouTube chat. Arrest Biden. Yes to J.D. Vance. No way to Marco. Arrest Biden. I will ask you this, though. Aren't you like me in the fact that I am so surprised by Marco Rubio? I thought he was really kind of down that establishment road. I didn't necessarily label him as a full-blown rhino, Republican in name only, but I really thought he was an establishment guy. And then he gets in there as Secretary of State. I think he's been fabulous. I don't think President Trump could ask for a better Secretary of State. So this is why my mind is open to a Marco Rubio now, because he's not the Marco Rubio of old. And he's not kind of little Marco. Remember when Trump called him that, little Marco? He's not little Marco anymore. This guy has really come into his own. Now, second place to JD. Let him fight it out, too. We got a lot of other great guys on the bench. But I'm impressed. And I don't know if you are, too, but I'm curious to what your thoughts are on all of that. All right, so J.D. Vance. Now, on the Democrat side, Kamala Harris has made it clear that she is not going to run for governor of California. The reason she made that clear is because Kamala Harris wants one office and one office only. And that, folks, is to be president of the United States. She doesn't have a chance. I don't think the Democrats are going to let her run again. I mean, think of the damage that she did to the Democrat Party. But Mark Halperin, an old buddy of mine from Newsmax, looked like he was on with Sean Spicer and another guy on a podcast. Listen to what Halperin had to say from what his sources are saying.
If the Biden people decide that Kamala Harris is coming after Joe Biden, wait till you hear the Palin-esque stories about how much they tried to help her be prepared to be vice president and be in a position to run, and how much they decided not happening. She's not up to this. And if the Biden people feel threatened, you will hear stories about Kamala Harris as vice president that will not make her look good. Okay?
All right, so I want you to listen to what Mark Halperin said very carefully. And the reason being is I think this is orchestrated. Halperin is not a MAGA conservative like me, okay? He may lean right, but he paints himself as a journalist. He's always doing his surveys, and they're really interesting stuff, but he's got contacts on both sides of the aisle, okay? I believe there were Democrats that told him to say this, that told him to warn Kamala Harris. Now, think about all the people inside the Biden White House that witnessed the Kamala Harris ineptitude. She was awful. She was awful for a long time. The amount of stories about just how awful are far and wide. And I agree that I don't think the Biden administration will think twice about dropping them. Not to protect Joe Biden. They don't care about him anymore. He's a crepey old skinned goat. They don't care about Joe Biden. They care about the future of their party. And if you're a Democrat, you know that Kamala Harris is not viable as a candidate. She is very, very disliked. So this, by Mark Halperin, is a shot across the bow saying, we will sink you before you even have a chance. Sometimes I say, I hope Kamala Harris' team listens, but wouldn't it be great to run against her again? Because she is so awful. Halperin continued.
And she will have a hard time defending against the stories of that damn bursts. They were extraordinary in trying to help her do the job of vice president. They gave her every opportunity. And they found in some instances that she had some issues.
All right. So What do you think? Do you think that they push back so much that she gets out of the race? I think she's too dumb to even realize that she's not viable. She's so cocky, and she can't speak. She can't think. She can't do really anything without the help of others. And that's what Halpern was getting at there, was that they did everything they could to prop her up, and she still stumbled and fell. But again, the fish rots from the head in that perspective. Now, I do have a warning for all of you. This is not great news. As we speak, at the time of this, there is a meeting going on at the White House, okay? This meeting is about Big Pharma. And this meeting is about the mRNA situation. Very important we push back. I have somewhat of an issue going on right now. And Jen, I need your help.
Okay.
I need the people's help. And I need you to get in touch with the Trump White House. So, as you know, RFK Jr. came out yesterday and said, we are canceling $550 million of the mRNA contracts with Big Pharma. mRNA, this is the experimental technology used in the so-called COVID vaccine that caused all kinds of problems.
Right.
The leading studies all show that this did not work. It did not prevent transmission. In fact, it made transmission worse. RFK Jr. came out and said, the problem is once a virus mutates, the mRNA enabled it to mutate more, and it caused more of a problem for the pandemic. Now, remember, we were shut off for this. I had a TikTok account canceled for basically making these same claims, and now this isn't RFK Jr. just saying this. CDC researchers have come to the conclusion, I'm sure much to their dismay, that the mRNA wasn't working. So he cancels these contracts. Well, President Trump was asked about this yesterday. And lo and behold, he goes back down. You know what he loves? He loves Operation Warp Speed.
He does.
So listen to President Trump yesterday.
Operation Warp Speed was, whether you're Republican or Democrat, considered one of the most incredible things ever done in this country. The efficiency, the way it was done, the distribution, everything about it has been amazing. But, you know, that was now a long time ago, and we're on to other things. But we are speaking about it. We have meetings about it tomorrow at 12 o'clock.
So those meetings, Jen, that's today now.
Yep.
At noon Eastern time. I'm very concerned that Big Pharma is putting the screws to the Trump White House now.
So you think they're coming after him?
President Trump sounds like Lance Armstrong saying about how great his Tour de France wins were. Okay, yeah, they were great.
I do understand one thing about Trump. Trump likes things to happen quickly, and I think that's why he liked Operation Warp Speed, because it happened quickly. Now, was it effective? Was it right for the people? Probably not. But President Trump likes to get things done and cut red tape and make things happen quickly, which is why I think he goes back to that a lot.
I believe that you're spot on that. And I do believe that as an operation, it was pretty impressive to roll this out. The only problem was what they rolled out was really bad. And in turn now, nobody's using this vaccine. I mean, it's plummeted. Why is that? That's because free markets work. And people realize, well, wait a second. I took 6 of these things and I've got COVID 18 times since.
Right.
So obviously, I'm not pumping my body with that anymore. The flu shot has a better record. And we know people who take a flu shot and still get
sick
the flu,
anyway. Exactly.
Right? But it has a better record, which is why more people take the flu shot. So, fine. What I'm fearing, though, is that we're having meetings about it. Well, why do you got to have meetings about it? The HHS secretary canceled it. Are you hauling him into the office to say, hey, wait a second? And the reason I'm on to this story is Robert Malone. Do you remember that name?
Yeah, Dr. Malone, sure.
He was one of the founders of mRNA technology. He's been one of the most vocal critics of it being used
because he knows
vaccines.
that it's being used in a wrong way. Yeah.
He texted me just literally, 20 minutes ago. and said, hey, can you help with this? Let's get people calling the White House. You can. You know what else is a great way to go on Truth Social or Twitter at White House and at Real Donald Trump and start voicing your concerns about you're happy that this thing is canceled. I'll tell you this, BARDA, which is the vaccination phase or committee of HHS, $2 billion for COVID and mRNA vaccine development and manufacturing has been spent on mRNA technology. So you don't think Pfizer and Moderna are going crazy that these contracts are being canceled right now?
Yeah, they're trying to save it.
And I do believe there's a part of President Trump that doesn't want to hear that this vaccine was a total failure. I'm not going to say President Trump never fails, because the man, I think he actually, did he claim bankruptcy or came pretty close to claiming bankruptcy? Bounced back with a vengeance.
Yep.
I mean, he told a story, Jen, or he's walking down the street. This was in his book, The Art of the Deal. He's walking down the street and a homeless guy says, can you spare some change? And he says, well, how much change you got in that styrofoam cup? He says, I've got about $1. And Trump says, well, you're about 400 million and $1 richer than I am right now. So
it's all on scale, right?
But he came back. But it's not to say that you don't have failures. Of course you do. You can't be right all the time. I don't think he does not want to be wrong about this. And I think he's closing a blind eye to what's happened. One of the doctors was on MSNBC, this Dr. Offit, who has made millions off mRNA technology, said, well, all the evidence shows that this has saved lives. It's a total lie. He says, except for some cases of myocarditis. Except for some cases of myocarditis. We all witnessed with our own eyes young people dropping, playing basketball and football and soccer.
Radar saw it, right? I mean, Radar, you're raising your hand in there. He saw it too. I mean, Radar, just to remind you of his story, was in the military, didn't take the COVID vaccine. He was being compelled to by the United States military.
Oh, yeah. I knew young, healthy, athletic guys who all of a sudden developed heart and lung issues after they got the shot. And then I had a buddy who got sick, and he said he never felt right afterwards.
So I'm getting right now that, and this is from Dr. Malone, that this meeting was not a scheduled meeting. It was called on short notice. So again, there is such strength in numbers. Yeah. President Trump looks at social media. I think this is the quickest way to do it, via Truth Social.
He does listen, that's for sure.
He absolutely does. So even if the meeting is already occurring, all right, send the note, because it's not going to end right after the meeting. You're going to have some time. So send the note. We've got to take an active role, and it is amazing to me the strength of our voices and what we've been able to get done with the strength of those voices.
Yeah. Well, I guess we gotta rally together around this one. That's for sure, because Big Pharma is very powerful. Those messages are also very powerful. But I think President Trump is uniquely capable of listening to the will of the American people.
Listen to RFK Jr. from yesterday, let's hear him. Just to review.
Hi, it's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. here, your HHS secretary. At HHS, we have a division called the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, or BARDA. BARDA drives some of our most advanced scientific research. It funds developments of vaccines, drugs, diagnostics, and other tools to fight emerging diseases and national health threats. Over the past few weeks, BARDA reviewed 22 mRNA vaccine development investments and began canceling them. Let me explain why. Most of these shots are for flu or COVID, but as the pandemic showed us, mRNA vaccines don't perform well against viruses that infect the upper respiratory tract. Here's the problem. mRNA only codes for a small part of the viral proteins, usually a single antigen. One mutation and the vaccine becomes ineffective. This dynamic drives a phenomenon called antigenic shift, meaning that the vaccine paradoxically encourages new mutations and can actually prolong pandemics as the virus constantly mutates to escape the protective effects of the vaccine. millions of people, maybe even you or someone you know, caught the Omicron variant despite being vaccinated. That's because a single mutation can make mRNA vaccines ineffective.
All right.
The same risk.
So I wanted to play that whole clip, Jen.
Yeah.
Because he does a good job of showing you the science. And at the end of that clip, he makes it very clear. And I believe him when he says, I am not anti-vax.
Right.
I want safe and effective vaccines.
It's stuff that works.
Look, I went to Nicaragua 6 years ago to build homes for poor people. I loaded up on vaccines. You think I want to get malaria?
No, nobody wants malaria.
No, but like this stuff has been around. Those vaccines have been around. I don't think it's had any effect. I mean, maybe that's why I as my son says, crash out so quickly. Maybe it's the vaccines that I took for Nicaragua.
Maybe that could have gotten you all hyped up.
Yeah, maybe that got me all hyped. It certainly can't be the testosterone.
No, it couldn't be that at all.
But the bottom line to all of this is we've got to take action. It's up to us. I understand. I give President Trump somewhat of a pass because he's so connected to all of this.
Right.
And it's gotta break his heart.
Because I think he wanted to do the right thing. That's the problem.
He 100% did. And he put his trust in the wrong people. Fauci and them are a criminal enterprise.
Yep.
So now just tell President Trump we don't want to support the criminal enterprise of Big Pharma anymore.
Perfect. And that's what we're asking you to do right now, whether that's on Truth or on Twitter or making a phone call to the White House hotline. Check it out. Do it. I think that was a very informative Trump MAGA Minute, Grant. Very good. And it leads.
All right. Thank you, Jen. So again, this is what we're doing. We've got to let President Trump's White House know that we're not fans of mRNA technology. Please don't go down this road. Support RFK Jr. on all of this. Okay? Folks, that is going to do it for us today. I'm Grant Stinchfield, GrantStinchfield.com. President Trump saying, hey, we're going to change the way we do the United States Census. You know, we use the census for population numbers to see where the congressional districts are, but we're counting illegal aliens. You understand that? We are counting illegal aliens. That makes no sense. I've been screaming about and yelling about this for a really long time. And so blue states that welcome in these illegals pump up their numbers, and lo and behold, they get more seats in Congress. We're going to change that. At least President Trump is. We're going to talk about that on the Real America's Voice show tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time. I urge you to tune in for that, as I urge you to do that every Monday through Friday night. And again, thank you so much for watching this podcast. Please share, like, copy, paste, post this video wherever you can. And again, God bless you all. Stinchfield's Army rolls. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you soon.